John Maxwell says time management is an oxymoron. Time is beyond our control, and the clock keeps ticking regardless of how we lead our lives. Priority management is the answer to maximizing the time we have. Hello, my name is Justin Letheby. I'm the eProfessor. And yes, today we are talking about time management, or really, in John Maxwell's world, priority management. And it's what I do agree with because as we get told many, many times, and if you haven't heard it, I'll tell it to you now, we can't control time. There is 24 hours in a day. That doesn't change. We don't get more, we don't get less. It is what we have in there. But we do have the ability to manage ourselves. We do have the ability to manage our business. We do have the ability to prioritize how we handle our day, our weeks, our months, our year. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about priority management. So, but before we do that, we got to understand a little bit about what time management is, priority management is. We need to understand a little bit about um, and really kind of being aware of ourselves, our weaknesses, our procrastinations in life, so to speak. So we need to make sure we are really fully aware of how that looks and what we are doing in our business today. So I want to talk first about what are some of those big time wasters that we sit there and do, or what are those momentum killers, or really more specifically, what are those things that we have in our systems today that just totally derail us from what we need to focus at all times? What do we do? What are we doing that we think are working for us, but probably are really working against us, right? And my first thing I'm going to tell you about right now is checking email first thing in the morning. Um, we we get in there, we check our email, we check Facebook DMs, we check whatever, and we'll talk about social media here in a second, but we check this stuff to see what's going on, and then we get derailed, right? So email being one of the first biggest time wasters, I think, in the morning. I don't hardly ever check that stuff. I try to go through my list, and I work very hard to make sure I know what I got to do today. But one of the things I want to encourage you to do when you are looking at what you're doing, get away from that email first thing in the morning. Do not check that in the morning. Now, there's always exceptions, right? We may be expecting a communication that lets us know if we're having an appointment or not that day. But for the most part, we should be staying away from that. We should be silencing the email in the morning. And most phones will let us control what does and does notify us. And I'd be encouraging us to stay away from those email notifications first thing in the morning because it's just not helping. It's really just leads us down a dangerous road. We're over communicated email. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know. By the time I wake up, I probably already have 100 emails since the time I went to bed. So that becomes a big challenge out there. Next, I'm going to combine these two topics into one thing because I kind of think they're the same thing. And I'll be honest, one of them is a hiccup for me. But stay away from social media in the morning. Again, I kind of hinted at it earlier. Stay away from Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I will admit I will watch some TikToks. I do it under the guise, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But I do it under the guise of trying to learn it or trying to figure out how I get to maximize it for my business. But the honest answer is, as soon as I do it, I'm down that rabbit hole, and I don't have the time. So I recommend trying to limit amount of distractions you have, specifically in the morning. Now, in general, social media is a necessary business for us to get done, but make sure we do this. Also, um, silence your games on your phone. A lot of us have games that we like and we enjoy, but they know how to keep us triggered. There are psychological effects on there, and they'll send reminders, making sure you haven't forgot about them or get this free reward or do whatever. And we get so caught up in that, other distractions deprioritize our lives. So Not that the games, not that social media is bad, but find ways to tune that out and get away from them. Be intentional about the use of what you're doing in there. They're not bad, but they're easily time wasters, rabbit hole chasers that we can't get away from. And then the last time waster that I want to make sure we're aware of and that we're talking about in this business is to make sure that we don't confuse being busy with being productive, right? We could be answering endless amount of emails. We could be running around chaotically and getting a lot of things going on, and we're busy, busy, busy. But that doesn't mean necessarily productive. Now, sometimes it can, for sure, right? If I'm going to networking events or I'm doing other things, this could be helping me move forward with our productivity and our future business. But if all we ever say is we're busy and we're not saying we're productive, we probably aren't succeeding where we want to be succeeding at. So we do need to figure out those time wasters we have in life. Now, what I would recommend is there's things known as a time audit. What you can do is on your phone, you can track where the activity is going. Quite literally, your phones track you all the time now. You can see on your phone where you're spending your time on your phone. It'll be a good idea what you're going on. But if you want to be a little more specific about identifying weaknesses in your priority management life, I would recommend keeping a spreadsheet for a while, for a week maybe, and put them in 15-minute intervals and track where you're spending your time and what you're doing. And what I would do is have basically 3 categories: time category, um, a categorized category, what you're doing, right? Working, social media, phone calls, whatever, have those categories out there, and then rate the effectiveness of that category, how well it's affecting and profiting your business. You will start seeing trends in there, what's happening, and it will be an eye opener for you. It will definitely be something that works in your business. So that's something I definitely encourage for everybody in here is create a little time audit. And if you don't want to do that paper, I would just look at your phone. Your phone's going to tell you what you are and aren't doing, and it will be painfully obvious. So make sure you're doing that. So next, I do want to make sure that we understand some essential categories, some essential uses, tools, techniques for priority management, for making the most out of your day. And there's really 3 things I think are really good strategies in life that will help us be a little more intentional about our days. Um, One is from a book called Today's Matters, the 3 R's. Another one is some habit stacking from a book called Atomic Habits. And then the other one is your savers from the Miracle Morning. I like all 3 of these. I think these all work very well to get them done for your business. So the first one, Today's Matters, really good book by John Maxwell called The 3 R's. You got to ask yourself basically 3 questions. What is required? What's the return? And what's the reward? Right? This is how you're going to prioritize your day. If I can understand what I have to get done today, what is required of me to get done. One of the goals I have set for myself this year, one of the things I have intentionally tried to do, or not try to do, am doing, is creating a lot more video content for everybody. And so that's required. Every Friday when I get up, I know I've got to get this done. Now, I'm going to be gone here in a little bit for a couple weeks in a row. So I'll be missing Fridays. So some of the videos that you are seeing are pre-recorded because I can't do them live because I'm not going to be live. I'm going to be somewhere else. Now, I may, you never know, actually have a live session soon during those sessions. I might be able to take a walk around and do a Q&A or something like that. But it's not going to be there. I'm going to have to figure out what's going on. And then I got to figure out what the return on that is, right? I need to understand Does it make sense? Is it busy versus productive? Am I getting value out of it? And then what's the reward, right? And the reason you always got to look at reward, there's a law by John Maxwell called the law of energy. There's things that give and take it away, right? You want to figure out how much you can keep doing this, how that priority is going to work. Because if you can't re-energize from this, it's going to be exhausting, and eventually you probably will stop. So please make sure you're asking those three questions: what's required, what's the return, and what's the reward. Next, one of the things I absolutely love now, Atomic Habits by James Clear is an extremely great book, and I think it's an amazing book. Couple big things I learned from it was the 1% rule, right? Just try to be 1% better every day, and I think that's a really good topic. But more specifically today, one of the things that I have implemented in my business and in my life is more what's called habit stacking. And habit stacking is essentially a topic that says, you know, if I do this, then I will do this, and then I will do that, right? So you just put these things in place. So, as an example, to get ready in the morning so I don't forget things, I will set certain things out at night at a place where I walk. That's a habit. I set things out at night. So I grab them in the morning. That reminds me that I got to do something else in the morning, right? So I'm always positioning things in my area. It's a habit I got into the night before to make sure I know to do something the next morning. It's the same thing in place here. There are certain habits that I have set up that I will stack, and I got to continue to do that because one of the values for habit stacking is there are such thing as good habits and bad habits. And when I work on this, one of the things you want to do is habit stack the good habits to eventually get out of the bad habits. And that's one of the best things I can recommend doing. And again, just the Atomic Habits book from James Clear, really good book. Last but not least, strategy that I really do like in here is the topic of the miracle morning. Now, there's a lot of good things in here. There's a lot of good things about it. But the one item that I want us to think about in this perspective is the acronym SAVERS. In this book, they talk about doing this every morning, 30 minutes to maybe an hour. Could even be 10 minutes if you don't have time. Like, we got to build this muscle, right? When we're doing this stuff, we're trying to build these habit muscles, and you can't start it off full blown. Sometimes you got to baby step into it. But the goal is 30 to 60 minutes of doing this every morning to get your morning started properly. Well, SAVER stands for silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. So silence is really more talking about kind of that meditation type perspective. You're just sitting there trying to relax, let the day go in and out, not doing anything, just having some mantras out there, things like that, which goes to your affirmations, right? Have those positive things out there. If you take in my goal planning class, I do recommend part of the affirmations being whatever your goal has written out to be and talking about it in an exciting, positive format. So you're doing it. Visualizations are great for us to do. We want to make sure that when we are doing our visualizations, we are picturing what we want to be, where we want to go, those excitements. We want to start that day with those positive visual outcomes that we want. When I was a hurdler back in the day, my visualization right when I got to the starting line was what it looked like for me finishing the race, what it looked like for me hitting the first hurdle, what it looked like for me in the middle of the race, right? I had those visualizations. It always worked. It helps. Exercise, one of the ones I am trying to get back into right now, is getting that exercise moving forward, getting some sort of repetition in place, getting better fit, getting better in shape. Because honest answer is, the less we take care of ourselves, the harder our lives become, harder our business becomes, because we are not in shape to handle the business. And then reading, right? John Maxwell tells us we should not have necessarily a goal plan. We should have a growth plan. And that should have some reading in there. What are you reading on a daily basis? What podcasts are you listening to? What are you trying to learn? Or even what are you trying to read just for enjoyment? But what is that you're trying to get out of place? And then the last place is scribing, journaling. Journaling is always a good item to do, where you come out there and write your thoughts, write your ideas, your goals, your ambitions, whatever. And there's a concept called authentic journaling, which you just kind of let write, and you just kind of random just keep going and going and going, and you write until you can't write no more. And then, part of your reading, you come back tomorrow and you can read that scribe. So it's definitely some things to think about. So those are the strategies in place. Now, how do we get all this done, right? If we're trying to time manage our life, what does this look like for us? How do we come out and make this work? So one of the things that I want to make sure that we are doing in place here and making this easy for us is we have systems in place to know how we can leverage some of these strategies, some of these systems that we have in place. Because the honest answer is, again, we only got 24 hours in a day, but we do have things that can gain us time back. And I don't mean that you're going to gain more hours in a day. I do mean let things that automate some of the life for you to get it done. CRM systems is a great example of this. A lot of new CRM systems, if you don't know what CRM stands for, CRM stands for Customer Relations Management, Client Relation Management. Pick your various acronym, but it's a tool that helps to manage your database of accounts, names, whatever, to keep them going. These CRMs can help you automate systems. They'll send email systems. They'll send notifications to you about tasks. Some are getting really good to know and identify the priorities that need to happen, right? They're learning a lot more and doing a lot better. So there are some really good CRMs out there for that. Then you also have maybe some project management tools. Asana, Trello are really good examples of these that will help you know where your task lists are and helping manage what's going on in place. With that also being said, you got some like digital calendars. I'm a big, if it doesn't exist in my calendar, it just doesn't exist person. So I love my Google Calendar for that kind of stuff. You may have some task batching that could be in place as far as that goes as well. Those are some of the technologies. Now, if we get some more of the better techniques from tools, you actually do have what's known as a Pomodoro technique, which is essentially a philosophy in business says we can only focus for so long, right? After 15, maybe 30 minutes, we need a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break. We need something in there. We can only focus on something so long. And there's actually physical, psychological brain studies that actually have proven this. So we want to have that. Now, what I like about the Pomodoro effect is you could actually manage it yourself. You can put your own timers on your watch and things like that. But there's actually really good browser or phone apps that will have the Pomodoro where it will turn off all your social media, it'll turn off all that stuff. So you won't get distracted by it. You'll focus for 30 minutes and then it'll turn everything back on for 5. Then it'll turn off for 30 minutes. And some of you, the better ones will actually help track some of the stuff you're doing. So don't be afraid to jump into that Pomodoro effect. And I may down the road, if anybody thinks, and again, if you always want, let me know if you want to know more about any of these topics we talk about today. Also, in the comments, please come out there and make sure you put out there any techniques that you like. I'm always always happy to learn new techniques that are out there. But I do like the Pomodoro. It works pretty good. And then last but not least, you also have the clean workspace. They call it the minimalist workspace, but I think the clean workspace out there is it's my by far worst thing. If you actually look down at my desk right now, it's not neat. But I do know I have to take every so often because if it gets too cluttered, I get too cluttered. What your brain is what your space is. There's a big philosophy on that. A lot of Zen things that happen in those conversations. So come out there and make sure that workspace is as clean as it needs to be. If you're starting to feel overwhelmed, you're starting to feel discombobulated, you're starting to feel just defocused, look around your room, look around what's going on, and make sure that your environment isn't producing that lack of effectiveness, that lack of efficiency. Make sure that you are not living, your room is not living what you're trying to avoid, right? So that's what that comes out to be. So that's all I got today for today's session. Again, just some basic topics. This was more about time management. We talked about some time wasters in this situation. We gave you some priority management strategies, the 3 R's, habit stacking, And then the savers are really good priority strategies. Then we talked about some technology and just some hacks that you had in place that you can make life a little bit easier. CRM systems, project tools, digital calendars, Pomodoro effect, as well as some minimal workspace. I hope this was effective for you guys. I hope this is something you guys enjoyed. Take one of the steps. Again, my biggest philosophy is master one thing, move on to the next. Hope take one of these strategies, dive into it, get more out of it. And as always, in the chat box, comment box, make those questions, make those comments. I'm happy to be here for you guys. I'm always happy to get this moving forward for you. Share in the comments the strategies that you like, the stuff that you like best. Also, come out there and make sure if you have any other new questions that you're trying to have answered, put them out there because that will help me know what to talk about next. So until next time, go make that money.